Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcus Engelbrecht. I'm the Managing Director of Crusader Resources. Up there. Just a quick disclaimer. I expect all of you to spend a bit of time reading it, but we don't need to do that now. Look, just a quick overview of who we are. Crusader Resources is a gold exploration company. We're listed in Australia on the ASX, and we're listed on AIM here in London. I'm based in London. We have 3 assets in Brazil, and I'll talk a bit about those today and why it's a great suite of assets. We have 2 directors in the UK and 2 in Australia. I'll go through those a bit later on. There's a list of our top shareholders. We have a mix of institutions in London as well as in Australia and places like Hong Kong. As you can see, we've had a difficult 12 months from a share price perspective, and I'll speak a bit about that later on. Right. Our intent is really to take our exploration projects up the value curve and develop them into cash producers. We have a great asset portfolio. We have 3 assets. One of them is early stage called Nova Astro. Another one's sort of middle stage called Juruena. And we have another one called Borborema, which is a late stage project, and that's the one where we think we have most value. The company has a lot of commercial experience, not just on the board, but also in the management teams. We've strengthened and expanded the board recently. Very pleased to bring our new chairman on board recently. And we have a lot of blue sky exploration potential in Brazil. Just talking about Brazil generally as a destination, it's a massive country, a massive population. They're very supportive of mining. Most of us know Brazil as an iron ore mining destination, but they have vast resources of copper, nickel, gold, and a whole suite of other commodities, and which is why we're so pleased to have these assets. So the intent of the company is to target future growth, not just in Brazil, but further afield as well. So this is just an outline of the assets themselves. And you can see on the top right-hand corner, Borborema. That's about 150 kilometers from Natal on the coast. That has a resource of 2.4 million ounces, a reserve of 1.6 million ounces. We've drilled about 95,000 meters there. It's late-stage development, and I'll talk a bit about that later on. And over on the other side, we have 2 projects, Juruena and Nova Astro. These are slightly earlier stage, but they're in a great gold district, and we're really pleased to have them. We have a small lithium project. It's lepidolite. We haven't spent much money on it. We think there's some value there, but we're not focusing on that at the moment. We're focusing primarily on gold. We've invested about $100 million into these projects to date. And the intention is to push the Borborema gold project through to a bankable feasibility study, which is just a decision to construct a mine. NPV on Borborema is $118 million US, which is a great project for us. Considering our market cap is a tenth of that, we think this is a great company to invest in. We have IFC on the register because of the Borborema project. The IFC, which is effectively the World Bank, they have very stringent criteria for investing in mining companies. We meet all those criteria for Borborema, and they came on board. They own 3% of the company. And if you look over here, this is where 2 of our projects are. This is the belt. Anglo American have staked nearly 2 million hectares there last year. So a great district to be in. I'll speak a bit more about the projects individually. That's the board and management team. Andrew Vickerman, many years at Rio Tinto, senior executive. He's the chairman. Myself, I spent 20 years at BHP Billiton. I was with some other Australian and AIM-listed companies previously. I finished building a mine in Indonesia. We did 150,000 ounces a year. John Evans, a very smart finance guy out of Australia. We have Paul Stephen, one of the founding directors. He's got a stockbroker background, smart guy. Andrew Beigel in Australia, our CFO, and Julio Nero out of Brazil. He's based in Belo Horizonte, vast experience as well. Great guy to have on board. Right, so where are we at the moment? We're dual listed. We did that because we wanted to attract a broader range of investors. We bring the board and management bring a lot of experience in taking development projects through into production and actually realizing the value proposition. We want to fast track our Borborema mine through the bankable feasibility study, through construction into production and cash flow. We think we can make the decision to mine by the end of the year, so we're working really hard to finalize that. We have an attractive pipeline of high-grade exploration projects in Juruena and Nova Astro in the Outer Floresta belt. We think we've got an opportunity to grow into a significant mining company. But I think a lot of you have seen these benchmarking graphs. If you look at the enterprise value to resource multiple, we're at just over $5 an ounce, a resource ounce. Virtually every peer we look at is significantly higher than that. So the job that we've set ourselves is actually to take that valuation and bring it up that curve. We think we can do that this year. But this is a typical value curve for exploration projects, for those that perhaps haven't been exposed to exploration in the past. So effectively, you start off with discovery. You get a bit of value for that. You start doing a desktop study, you do some modeling around that to see whether there's some value attached to that. You do a pre-feasibility study, take it up to a bankable feasibility study, construct it, commission, and into production. And there's a clear path of value creation as we take those up. Nova Astro, that's relatively early stage. Juruena, just before we start on the pre-feasibility. Borborema, we're close to a decision to mine on that. And we think there'll be a significant uptick in value as we take that up that value curve. Right, so milestones and strategy for us. So from the Borborema project, we've commenced metallurgical testing. We've got a 6-ton sample down in Perth. We're well advanced with that. We expect that to be finalized in the next probably 4 to 5 weeks. We've submitted installation permit license in Brazil. One of the key constraints in Brazil to actually get a mine into production is really around the environmental license. Some of you might be aware of the Samarco disaster in Brazil a few years back. The Brazilians are very strict on making sure that the plan that you submit for the environmental license meets the strictest criteria. We actually have that environmental license. So we're in a position now where we can actually start construction of that. Once we have the installation license, we expect to have that probably in the next 4 to 5 months. So we'll be in a position to start construction beginning of next year. Juruena, we'll be doing a comprehensive geological review of that, and we'll be doing some magnetic and IP surveys over that project. This is a really great project, and I'll show you some of the results that we've got there. And we're targeting an economic resource. Nova Astro, this is early stage for us. We got some good results, but we need to do a further initial assessment on that. And our lithium project, we're looking at options to monetize that. We're a gold company. We're not really interested in lithium, but there is a lot of interest in it. Right, Borborema. I'll go through this in a bit more detail. So you can see where we're listed. There's Natal. That's in the Rio Grande do Norte project, and we're about 150 kilometers. That's a sealed road for us, so it's great infrastructure. We've effectively de-risked this project. We've done 95,000 meters of drilling. We know it's in the ground. It's a relatively homogeneous project, so throughout the ore body, the grade's very similar, which makes it a lot easier for us. We have excellent regional infrastructure. We've got tar roads, we've got power lines running a few kilometers from where we are. We have a local town where we've agreed to take all their grey water, which will give us the water we need. This used to be the tungsten district in Brazil. So they have a real multi-generational mining culture. They have a little mining school in the local town, and the local people are very supportive of this project. So we're looking at putting a straight carbon in leach processing facility in place. This will be an open pit mine We'll be processing 2 million tons per annum, and we look to generate about 70,000 ounces of production a year of gold. That's nameplate. We expect to be able to push that a bit. Capital cost will be about 93 million. I'm busy doing some optimization studies at the moment to try and bring that down. Cash cost of $737 an ounce, all-in sustaining at just over 900. We think we can bring that 900 down to about 800. All-in sustaining really means all the costs across the board within the company. NPV of 118 million, an IRR of 31%, which is a great result. And we have already commenced initial discussions with various funding partners to do that. Some of them have signed CAs, and they're on the feasibility study work that we're doing. They're actually reviewing that as we go, so they're ready to have that discussion when we get to the point to fund it. We've spoken about the JORC reserve. The JORC is there's two types of mineral reserves that really we look at. One is either the Canadian NI 43-101, the other one's the Australian JORC. That means that out of the 2.4 million, we've demonstrated that 1.6 million ounces can be extracted economically. Under this scenario, we're looking at taking out about half that 1.6 million over 10 years. So we'll take out about 800,000 ounces. And we expect to generate about $35 million US free cash flow a year over 10 years. There's multiple optimization opportunities over this. We've been very conservative in the work we've done and modeling to get the 31% rate of return. We think there's real opportunity to do better than that. Right, I keep talking about a de-risk project. Here you can see the road that goes past the mine. There's always a lot of angst in Brazil around, is this in the jungle? Is this the Amazon? The biggest tree you have here is a thorn bush about this high. We own the land. There's no one on there to move. This is a relatively dry area. There's a local town, the one we're going to get the water from, very supportive. There's other opportunities near Borborema as well, which we haven't done. So we're very focused on what we've done there, but there's more opportunities along strike and down dip. We haven't drilled this out. So we've gone down about 350 meters. The gold deposit continues at depth, and it actually gets richer the deeper you go. The typical power cost in the region is 7 cents per kilowatt hour, which is very cheap. And I think I've spoken to the fact that we actually own this property, which in Brazil is a big issue. Now, the community issues in Brazil are one of the main constraints for mining companies. There's no indigenous land claims over this property, so we have full ownership of it. It's a very conducive regulatory environment in Brazil. The government have just done a review of the regulation. They're doing more and more to actually encourage miners to come in and actually start mines. In the province that we're at, there's what they call the Sudene tax concessions. Overall tax rate's about 15.25%. We've started a discussion with that. We think that'll apply to us as well. The mining royalty has just been raised from 1 to 1.5%, which is very low. But this is a good picture of the ore body itself. This is the ore body. It goes down at an angle. It's open at depth. It's about 3 kilometers across. The previous owners of this property did a little open pit. They took about 100,000 ounces of gold out in the early 90s. This was the first heap leach operation in Brazil. We're not doing a heap leach. Heap leach is effectively where you grind the ore and put a solution through it and then recover the gold from the runoff. We're not doing that. We're going to be doing a traditional straight CIL plant. Because the ore body is homogeneous, it's relatively easy to get that out. We expect about 93% recoveries on that, which is exceptional. Right, just moving on now to Juruena. Juruena is a project that I love. This is in a different area on the western side of the country. As you can see, we've had some what they call garimpeiros in Brazil. These are artisanal miners. They typically will dig a hole for some gold. It rains and it fills up and they move on. They don't go down much more than about 15 or 20 meters. The gold we're looking at is a lot deeper than that. We've got a runway on here. We have relatively good infrastructure. It's a great project. So I showed this map earlier, and you can see over here, this is where we are, Juruena, Nova Astro. This is where Anglo American have just staked a significant ground position. You have Vale up there. You've got PA Gold, which is a Brazilian company. And you've got a lot of others. I Am Gold are in there as well. Spoke to their guys yesterday. They're very excited about this area. But Anglo American are very active here. They've got their geos all over the place. They're looking primarily for copper. Right, Juruena, we call this bonanza style. If you look at, just move on to 2. This is why I'm saying bonanza. We hit 10 meters, 112 grams of gold. We hit 0.4 meters, 2,000 grams. That's 2 kilograms of gold. 12 meters at 35, I can go through. There's some fantastic grades that we've hit. What's really interesting about Juruena, we have 7 areas of gold mineralization. The previous owners were a company called Largo Dorado out of Canada. They were listed. They were looking for a copper porphyry. And they spent about 30 million Canadian drilling this out, looking for a copper porphyry. We've got some copper, relatively good copper near surface. Anglo American think that belt's mainly copper. We don't. We think this is primarily gold. And you can see from here, we have 260,000 ounces already identified as a resource. But what's really exciting is the grade. At 6.3 grams. We've got 205,000 of that is at 14.7 grams a ton, which is phenomenal grades. And those aren't too deep. We've done 55,000 meters of drilling. Again, we've got some really good infrastructure there. We're advanced on the licensing process. Getting the environmental license in Brazil takes about 3 or 4 years. You've got to do 2 years of clear monitoring. We're well advanced in doing that already. And as you can see, we have a number of different areas where we found gold. We're looking at, if we went to a leach, we'll probably recover more than 90%, which is exceptional. Again, so there we are. So this is just a picture of the deposit itself. You can see the trend. Multiple gold anomalies across 8 kilometers by 4 kilometers. It's a big deposit. It is structurally controlled, so we can actually see a clear structure. But we've got epithermals. We've got these high-grade dolerite shoots. We've got something that looks like a porphyry. So there's a lot of different things happening out there, which is quite exciting. And as I said, some high-grade copper intercepts at surface. Right, so Nova Astro is the last one. Nova Astro, that's probably about 20 or 30 kilometers from Juruena on the same belt. As you can see, there's been a lot more activity by the Garimperos. But again, they go down about 20 meters. They're looking for alluvial gold, which is the surface. What we're looking for is something very different. We haven't done a lot of work there. We've done a lot of rock sampling where we go out, do some trenching, pick up some rocks and sample them. We've got 13 rock samples at surface, grading more than 10 grams a ton, which is exceptional. We've got 2 at over 100 grams. So this is a project which I really like, and we'll be spending some money on Nova Astro in the next few years. It's what they call an intrusion-related gold system, which forms a depth. So we think there's going to be a lot of gold deeper down, not near surface. Running out of time, so you'll excuse me for rushing on. Right, in conclusion, Crusader has aspirations to be a gold producer in probably about just over 2 years' time. End of the year, we'll finalize our bankable feasibility study, make a decision to mine. We're already speaking to funders, start construction in the first quarter next year, and about an 18-month build. As you've seen, our shares are significantly undervalued compared to our peers. I can talk about the market. I can talk about the Australian appetite for Brazilian explorers. We're now listed in London, and there's a lot of appetite here to people we've spoken to. We have a significant exploration portfolio from early stage in Nova Astro right through to late stage in Borborema. And we will be targeting further growth through development and M&A and other opportunities as they present themselves. The fact that we have a very experienced board and management team means that there's a lot of people coming to us, speaking to us about further opportunities. But we'll be focusing primarily in the next 12 to 18 months on finalising the bankable feasibility study, and just getting the decision to mine and starting construction, getting this mine built.
Question time. Anybody got any questions? Gentleman right over there. Just behind
you. Basically, what are you going to do with the shareholders' money?
The shareholders' money will go into the ground and into finalising a bankable feasibility study and taking the late-stage Borborema project into construction and into production.
So it's a form of expansion, is it?
Excuse me?
Is it a form of expansion?
Well, if you could see it as an expansion. I mean, we sort of talk about it as development, if you like, where we have a great late-stage exploration project which we want to develop and take it into production and start generating some cash flow. So yes, yeah.
I may have missed this, but how much cash have you got at the moment, and how much do you need to raise, and how much is your board paid?
We haven't published our cash balance recently, and we'll be doing that at the end of July as we're required to. We raised 6.5 million Australian dollars in March. We had some debt, which we've paid off. So, we think, excuse me?
How much have you got there?
I can't tell you that. That's not public information at the moment. Sorry, what you had a third question, which...
How much is the board paid? It's a very good, impressive heavyweight board. What is the sort of head office cost?
Well, at the moment, they're not being paid anything. But I think what I'm saying is they're not taking any money out of the company at the moment. But they're paid about, I think it's about 36,000 each, who aren't executives. So myself, Paul, Stephen are executive directors, so we don't get paid that.
That's unusual, isn't it? Next question.
Hi. You mentioned that Anglo were looking for gold in
copper.
Copper in that area. So my question is, why wouldn't Anglo go for the gold as well? I mean, why
everyone who goes for copper gold, unless you're a gold company and then you go for gold copper. If you look at Newcrest, Newmont, a lot of these companies now are struggling to replace the gold that they're mining every year. And a lot of them are looking for copper, and they're calling it gold copper. Because there's always gold associated, well, nearly always gold associated with copper and the other way around. So, I mean, they'll go for copper, but they'll take the gold credits as they get them. So they don't mind gold.
Okay.
Question over here, Pete.
Hi, what's your market cap?
Market cap is quite small. You saw that one of the first slides
Why
we had.
is it so small compared to the investment so far?
It's interesting. Crusader previously had after the GFC and the downturn several years ago, they looked at their cash flow and they realised that they need to do something internally, and they had an iron ore project called Posse, and they actually put everything on care and maintenance, and they focused on taking the little iron ore mine into production. And they were quite successful for about 3 or 4 years. They had some high-grade stuff within some fines. But what the optics in Australia were, Crusader has become an iron ore company. And a lot of the gold investors started pulling out. Before I joined Crusader, this was last year, they sold off Posse. When I go and speak to Australian investors, they say, "Oh, Crusader, don't like management and you're iron ore, not interested." You know, we're trying to change that perception in Australia. So I'm spending a lot of time speaking to investors out there, and we expect we'll get that, but it hasn't happened yet. I've been on board since the end of November last year. Yeah.
Any more questions? Any more hands going up? Obviously, the share price looks depressed, and you've admitted to that.
It is. I mean, sorry.
It's very much news flow related. I think, exploration companies like yourself, the share prices tend to react quite quickly to good news. What is your news flow like, say, for the rest of this year? Have you got a...
So look, what will happen, we'll start getting some results from metallurgical testing. We also have put in the first round of our installation permitting, and we've got that back. We can start putting that in the market as well. We're going to start appointing engineering guys to assist us. We're going to start appointing people, project people within the team itself. And we'll start generating some activities at site at Borborema as well. So all of that will start generating news flow. And as we progress with the bankable feasibility study, we'll bring that to the market through announcements.
And will you bring partners in, do you think? I know you talk about the funding. Would that funding could be a partner, or would it going to be sort of finance in some way?
Look, we're looking at finance. I mean, typically in a project like this, you'd look probably at about a 70-30 debt to equity split. I mean, that's typically what they do. We've had a couple of debt providers saying that they would prefer to come in at a larger number. So we're still discussing exactly what that should be, what that split should be.
And you are a producer rather than an explorer, is that the
we are
plan?
an explorer, but the intent is to become a producer.
'Cause that's obviously your background, isn't it?
That's right.
As a production
That's
side.
right. I mean, when you start speaking to investors, you start speaking to financial institutions, funds, they want a clear path to cash flow. They want us to demonstrate that we have the management team with the experience to take something through that development stage, through construction, into cash flow.
At what point do you get paid? Because obviously,
I'm actually. What's happened is I've actually, when I say I haven't been paid, I've actually participated in the capital raise. So, the money that I was going to be paid, I've effectively put back into the company.
So are you quite a large shareholder as a management team?
No. It's just, I'm a small shareholder.
Okay.
But hopefully that'll change. Yeah.
Any other questions, anybody? Oh, 2 hands go up. That's good.
What is your cash burn? And how much runway do you have in terms of ability to fund that cash burn?
Look, my cash burn that I had is not the cash burn going ahead. So what I've done is, in the last, I'd say, 3 weeks, I've let a lot of people go in Brazil. I've closed my Perth office, and we've moved to a very small an office. And we're cutting costs significantly. So the cash burn will be significantly less than it has been in the past. And when we put our numbers out in July, end of July, we'll disclose what that is.
And final question on the very back row.
Hi, thanks very much. Do you find that the exchange rate with Australia has caused any downward pressure on your stock price? And do you find that there's any arbitrage between the AIM and the ASX in your shares?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think, look, it's still early days. We're only, this is from end of March, so early days as yet. But I suspect that'll happen. I mean, Australia is in an interesting position. Is that because the Australian dollar tanked a few years back, their local cost base has dropped in US dollars. I mean, they get paid in US dollars, and their cost base is in Australian dollars. There's a lot of uncertainty around exactly what the Australian dollar is going to do and how that's going to impact on mining companies in Australia. I mean, the biggest issue for us really is the Brazilian real. Where's that going? So that's something that we have to think about and make sure we don't get caught short on that.
Marcus, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks. Nice.
Thanks.